Hey, Ridge Church, it's Bobby, and wanted to, as promised, come to you today with a little follow-up from this past Sunday's message. If you missed this past Sunday's message, I would encourage you to go and listen to it. It's on our YouTube page. It's right here on our Facebook page. Just click on videos and you'll find it there. It's even up on our website, richchurchonline.com. And I taught from 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And in that, Jehoshaphat, the king, leading the people of Israel, multiple armies were coming against him, and he begins to pray. And he says this, he says, God, we don't know what to do. We're afraid, but we're going to keep our eyes on you. And so we talked about what does it mean for us to keep our eyes on Jesus. And in his prayer and in the response from the prophet, we gleaned a couple of different things. One is we just said, you know what, we need to ask for God's help. We need to pray. We need to pray just like Jehoshaphat prayed. He was afraid. He didn't know what to do, but he said, I'm going to keep my eyes on you. And he prayed and asked for God's help. So we said, let's pray. Let's ask for God's help. He said that, God, I'm going to trust you. You're sovereign over all things. And so I'm going to trust you during this time. And then they worshiped. It said that they fell flat on their face and they got down on their hands and their knees and they worshiped and they sang loudly and they worshiped the Lord. And it was when they worshiped that the breakthrough actually happened for them. And then the fourth thing is they weren't passive. It said that they had to march down to the battlefield. Even though the prophet told them the battle is already won, it's yours, all you have to do is show up. But they still had to show up. They couldn't be passive. So what I want to talk to us about here for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So if you can just settle in for 15 minutes, I promise it'll be short. I want to talk about really quickly for us specifically as Ridge Church, what does it look like for us to march down to the battle and let God do what only God can do, but we still have to do what we need to do. We can't be passive. And that's what I said this past Sunday, is that we can't be passive. And so to reference something really quickly, to frame this out for us, if you have a Bible with you, you can turn it to Matthew chapter 16, specifically in verse 18. Peter and Jesus are having a conversation, and Jesus says something to Peter that was very, very important. He told Peter, he said, Peter, on this rock, I will build my church. Now, he wasn't saying that he was going to build his church upon Peter. He was saying that I'm God. I am sovereign. I am in control of all things, and I'm going to build my church. And then he said, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And so two really important things that we need to remember. Number one is that Jesus is going to build his church. I've been reminding myself of this for a long, long time, that God uses me to help build the church, but ultimately it is he who builds the church. And even in this time, even right now, while we're not gathering physically, we're gathering right here. God is building his church, and he will continue to build his church. And so we need to trust him in that place and in that space. But then secondly, he says, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. That maybe in your mind, and I know it's certainly at the front of my mind, it's probably not very much in the front of your mind, but I'm going to think about it for you because I'm the pastor and that's what I get to do. But we need to remember that in this time, even though we can't meet together physically, in this time when we would love to be able to fellowship with one another and all those things, we're having to do that differently, that the gates of hell will not win out. Like when all of this is over and this new normal is established in our world, that the gates of hell still will not prevail against the church. Like this is not the end of the church. And so we've said this over and over and over again. You can't cancel church because you can't cancel Jesus. And I believe that with all of my heart. And so in this time, even though we are not gathering together physically, we can't be passive. And so how are we not going to be passive? Well, here at Ridge Church, we have three Make sure I got that right. 3 core values. We have 3 core values here at Ridge Church, and core values for us, you see them when you walk down in our hall. If you're at Clinton, you see them when you first come into the lobby. When you're in Oak Ridge, you see them when you walk down our hall. And our 3 core values are really simple. We want to love Jesus, we want to live generously, and we want to impact the community. And so how are we not going to be passive? We're going to love Jesus, we're going to live generously, and we're going to impact the community. We're going to do those things. And here's the thing. You are going to do those things. I am going to do those things. We are going to do those things together. So how do we do that? Well, number 1, love Jesus. What does that look like? Well, it looks a lot like what we talked about on Sunday. It looks like trusting Him. It looks like asking for God's help. It looks like worship. It looks exactly like that. And where do we get that? Well, we really get that from Acts chapter 2 in verse 42. Acts chapter 2, verse 42, as the church is being formed, it's a very familiar passage of Scripture. It says this, it says, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship and to the breaking of bread and the prayers." And listen, when they did that, listen to what happened. Verse 43, it says, "And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common, and they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as they had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people." And listen, "And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved." Now, we are doing these things, but we're having to do them differently. We're not gathering together, but we are gathering together in our homes. You're gathering in your home. In fact, maybe you're in your home watching or listening to this right now. And so this, more than ever, this loving Jesus, this core value, how we are not passive, we have to live this out. Acts 2, 42 through 47, we have to live this out. We have to do these things because I don't know about you, but I still want to see awe happen. I still want us to look and go, God, what you have done in this time, only you could get the credit for. I got an email from somebody on Monday. They emailed me and they said, "Hey, watched the service yesterday, and I just wanted to let you know that I prayed, and I know that my next step is baptism." And that was amazing. I got a text message from somebody, and they said, "I had some family members in another state watch, and they said that they prayed for the first time in a long time, and now they are trusting God." I got another message from someone who said, "Hey, I watched this past Sunday, and man, this was so encouraging to me. I just needed that so much." I got all kinds of messages like that, and it had nothing to do with the things that I said. It had everything to do with awe happening, awe coming upon every soul, and many wonders and signs being done. That's exactly what that does. And I want to see that continue to happen. And I want that to happen for you. And so we need to love Jesus. We need to continue to pray and fast. As I said this past week, that we need to have a time of fasting happen. And so for me, this past Monday, I started my day out. I ate dinner on Sunday night, and I didn't eat again until dinner on Monday evening. I fasted on Monday. And I did that. And as I did that, there were some personal things that I was praying for, and there were things for our church that I was praying for. I was asking God to just kill this virus and to defeat this virus and bring healing upon our world. And I'm going to work that into my regular rhythm. There'll be a day this coming week when I do that again. And I want to encourage you to do the same if you are able. Again, to trust, to worship, those things. That's how I'm loving Jesus, and that's how you need to be loving Jesus as well. One other practical thing that you can also be doing is using your YouVersion Bible app. There are devotionals for anything that you want in there. Do a devotional. And here's a cool thing. You can actually select some friends to do the devotional with you. And so add some friends, have some friends, and do devotionals together with other people on YouVersion. You can comment on verses, you can comment on the day, it will ask you questions that everybody should answer together. This is a great way to do a little mini small group, a little mini discipleship group, if you will. Now YouVersion actually has a prayer function, and so you can put prayer requests there in the YouVersion app. So if you don't know what the YouVersion app is, just go to your app store, search YouVersion or search Bible. It should be the first thing that comes up there. This is a great way for us together to be loving Jesus, continuing to do that, and cultivating that relationship with Jesus during this time. Again, going back to 2 Chronicles 20, where it says, God, we're afraid, we don't know what to do, but we do know to do this, to put our eyes on you. This is how we put our eyes on Jesus. Secondly, this is how we continue to not be passive. We need to live generously. We need to live generously. It's what the people here in the book of Acts, that's what they were doing. They were living generously, and it says they came together and they had everything in common. They were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And so what that means is that they were serving one another. They were living generously amongst one another. So let me ask you this question. What can you do to love your neighbor right now? Right? Just because gatherings are canceled in the way that we know that gatherings are canceled does not mean that obedience to the commands and the call of Jesus is canceled. We're still called to love our neighbors. Even in this time of social distancing, again, that doesn't mean that we're socially disconnecting. We're still called to love our neighbors. We're still called to love the people in our oikos. That's a Greek word that just simply means our little slice of the world that we live in. So maybe it's in your workplace, maybe it is just in your neighborhood, maybe it's just right there in your home, right there. What can you do to love your neighbor? You know, I think there's some things that we can do there. You've probably got a friend group, a group of friends, and maybe they're here in the church, maybe they're not in the church. What if you said, hey guys, once a week, let's just get together on Zoom. You know, zoom.us is the website, or Google Hangouts if you want. But these are video conferencing apps that you can use on your phone or your desktop, your iPad, whatever that you have. And you can gather people together and you can just hang out together online. Like what if you did that? What if you started a small group that meets online? You can do that. You should do that. In fact, if you're not in one, I would encourage you to either get in one or just start one. In fact, here's your permission. If you're like, hey, do I need permission? Here's your permission. Go start an online small group. Go do that and do it with people all across the country. That's totally okay to do that. Maybe in your neighborhood, I know a lot of neighborhoods have like a private Facebook group. What if you hopped on that private Facebook group? Or if you don't have one, what if you started a private Facebook group for your neighborhood or just with your neighbors right there? And what if you got on there and you said, hey guys, let's do a Google Hangout or a Zoom chat, and you set that up, you put the link out there for them, and then everybody got on there, or anybody that wanted to got on there, and you just said, hey, does anybody need anything? Is there something that I can do for someone? Do you have some elderly or shut-ins or people in your community that have an immune system that could be compromised during this time? Can you go and serve them? What can you do for them? You know, if you go to our Facebook page, whether you're in Clinton or in Oak Ridge, it's on both. If you go to our Facebook page, there is a form that we put out there, a link that you can click on. It's a Google form, and it's called I Can Help. And we put 5 categories of things that we think that as a church, these are areas that we can help. You can help in these areas. Maybe you can tutor somebody online. With everybody now, new homeschool teachers, right? We're all homeschooling our children. Maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you are, you just can help tutor in an area. So maybe that's a way that you can help. Maybe you don't mind going out and picking up groceries or running some errands for some elderly or others. You can put that on there. Maybe you're handy with your hands and you don't mind going into somebody's house and doing some small handyman work or different things like that. There's lots of different things. We put 5 different things on there that we feel like are ways that we can help serve the people around us right now. So again, we need to still live generously, and living generously means that we're going to give of our talent, and we're going to give of our time. We're also going to continue to give of our resources. That means that even now, if you are still able, we need to continue to give. We need to continue to give to our church. If you're able, if you've lost your job in this time, we want to be able to help you. We want to be able to give to you. And that's all of us doing this right here. That's us coming together to any had need, to be able to give to you. And so the way that we are able to do that is that if we all are collectively still giving together, mainly because for two reasons. Number one, Jesus calls us to be generous and to give. And he sets the example of that generosity for us, right? God so loved the world that he gave. And so just because we're not gathering physically doesn't mean that we stop giving. So we should still give. I mean, yes, it's absolutely true. The lights and the buildings and all of that stuff that we have, we still have to pay for those. That is true. And part of what you give and part of what I give goes to doing those things. And obviously we want to continue to do those things. We've made some measures here at Ridge Church where we've cut off some power, and we've cut out some things so that we're not paying for things that we're not really using right now, so that we can be good stewards of all of these things. But also, we need to remember that we have a mission that God has called us to as a church, and that is to help people follow Jesus. And that mission doesn't stop. And so we want to continue to help people follow Jesus even now. And so by you giving and me giving to our church, we're still doing that. We're still funding ministries. We're still funding ministry areas within our church. We're still funding missionaries across the world. We're still doing things like Dollar Club, and we'll do that next week. We're still giving to organizations in our city. We're still looking for ways to serve. We're paying staff and other people to do what they're still doing right now. And so we still need to give. And again, you can do that at ridgegive.com. It's the only way that we're able to give right now. And so I encourage you to do that. So we want to love Jesus. We want to live generously. And then last but not least, we want to impact communities. Impacting the community is serving others. Yes, it is that, but it is also so much more than that. We don't want to be passive. We still got to march to the battlefield. And one of the ways that we can impact the community is we can impact the community that you are in right now. That means your neighborhood. That means your home. It's your oikos. It's the little slice of the world that God has you in. And he has you there for a purpose and for a reason. I believe that with all of my heart. In fact, we say that all the time here at Ridge Church. And so maybe you're still having to go into work. That's your community. That's impacting your community. So how can you impact the community? Well, I think that we can do a couple of different things. Not only can we serve them in the ways that we talked about being generous, because being generous is giving our talent, it is giving our time, it is giving our resources generously to others. But a way that we impact the community is we get our hands in. We get our hands in, and you can do that lots of different ways. Like what if with your coworkers you just said, "Hey guys, I just really want to pray for you. How can I pray for each one of you right now?" What if you asked them that question? What if you went in your neighborhood and you walked around your neighborhood, and as you passed each house, you just prayed for each house, whether you know them or not, you just prayed for them. And then if your neighbor is outside, what if you said to your neighbor, you said, "Hey, 6 feet apart, you stay over there, I'll stay over here, but I have a question for you. How can I pray for you right now? Is there any way that I can personally serve you or help you in any way right now?" Listen, I'm telling you, that'll mean the world to them, and you'll have some amazing conversations, which is exactly what you want. You want to be able to do that. And so be bold, be courageous, and say, "Hey, how can I How can I pray for you right now? Another way that we are impacting the community, and the way that you can impact the community, is if you look at the community that God has you in, whether it's in your neighborhood, in your home, in your workplace, and look at those places and say, this is my church. This is my church, and I need to lead my church. Listen, whether you know this or not, you are leading a micro church right now. You're leading a micro church, a small church. And maybe you think, well, I'm not a pastor. I've never been ordained. I don't even know the Bible that well. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because of the current culture that we're in. You're leading a micro church right now. And I'm looking at you and I'm counting on you to pastor your micro church, to help pastor your micro church. And that means praying for them. That means helping them love Jesus. That means helping them live generously. That means helping them impact the community around them. I mean, what if you did that? What if you led the people around you and said, hey guys, let's pray for one another. How can we serve others right now? How can we be generous to other people right now? What if you asked your family that question and you guys begin to do that? You can do this. I believe this with all of my heart. Again, I'm going to say it again. Jesus is going to build his church. And I think that God's going to do some amazing things, that he brings some amazing things out of this. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I believe that with all of my heart. And I believe that for you. And I believe together that if we will love Jesus, that if we will live generously, that if we will look for ways to impact the community around us, I believe that awe will happen. I believe that amazing things, just like it did right here with the people in the early church, I believe that will happen, and awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. Church, listen, I love you. I'm so excited to help pastor you through this time. As hard as it is, I'm not disregarding that. It's difficult for a lot of us, and I think it's going to get even more difficult as we go. But I love being your pastor, and I love leading us through this opportunity. And we're going to make some mistakes, but we're going to try to keep our eyes on Jesus the whole time. And I hope that you will do the same and do that with us. So let's not be passive. Let's love Jesus. Let's live generously, and let's impact the community together. Love you, church.